my voice sounds like death. I'm dealing with sinus issues. So
As you pulled the death card.
literally, I pulled the death card early. I'm like, oh, it's near. Okay, cool. I feel like it. Word to the witch. Okay, we are here today with Mystik Green, Christy Green. What is it? Mystic Sister,
Mystic
Green.
Sisters, the silversmithing. Mystik Green is the apothecary. Kitty Mars, I do music under.
Ooh.
And then, Christy Green is my real name.
When was the last time Kitty Mars had like a debut?
I try to do all of my sound healing stuff under Kitty Mars. All of my names are like anagrams of my names. So Kitty Mars is an imperfect anagram of Christy Marie. Mystik Green is an anagram of Christy M. Green.
That's awesome and well thought out. I wish I thought that much about anything.
Air sign problems.
Just kind of like a little intro to Christy and who she is. She's a sound healer, but also a super skilled herbalist, which I have just sung her praises with how her blends and her medicine has like truly changed my life. I'm like really excited to have her on. Also, I feel like Christy is such an advocate for neurodivergence and bringing awareness to ADHD. And that's especially something that I want to talk about today.
ADHD is like an alien-dressed human disorder.
Oh my God. Okay, so how did you find out that you have ADHD?
So I got diagnosed when I was 18 officially by a psychologist. Is it a psychiatrist or a psychologist? Psychologist?
Probably a psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist. So I went to see a psychiatrist when I was 18, and they diagnosed me ADHD and bipolar. They put me on all sorts of medication, and it just like ruined my life for like 5 years. And I slowly weaned myself off of it. So I pretty much, raw dogged my 20s.
Yeah.
With no sort of medication, no sort of like understanding what ADHD even was,
Yeah.
So like I was so impulsive, I was so unorganized, scattered. It was brutal. And the bipolar thing, I was actually talking to someone about that the other day when they diagnose women with bipolar, because it's like every woman is bipolar. We have cycles.
Period.
We are hormonal. It's not bipolar. I'm on my cycle, where I'm like at a certain point in my cycle where I'm just like irritable. I'm not bipolar. I'm just a woman. I don't ever say I'm bipolar. I just say I'm a woman with a lot of feelings and a lot of emotions, and they fluctuate from day to day.
The whole movement online of not believing in mental disorders or like validating those experiences or anything like that. And I hate that. Like, I hate it. You're not ADHD, you're quirky. I mean, that's really common, especially amongst women,
it's
like
insulting.
You said. It's so insulting.
You're just lazy.
Yeah.
Or you're a slob. And I'm just like, actually, I'm going through ADHD paralysis because it's real.
It is real. I understand that with the panic disorder, because that's another thing too, is that these disorders are triggered through stress and trauma. So like you could in theory live with hidden ADHD for like 2 years, and like massive amounts of stress hit or something traumatic hits, and then boom, like those underlying things are triggered. And I feel like people in my life in the past, not anybody currently, but have kind of looked at that and been really confused. I get it. I give people the grace of not understanding how like something could be dormant, but also how do you think the person with the disorder feels?
So with ADHD comes, hypersensitivity. If there's clutter in my space, I literally can't think straight.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly trying to keep things in order, like OCD almost, to keep me functioning properly. Yep. And then when you add a 4-year-old into the mix,
oh my God,
where it's just like, I just cleaned this up. Oh my gosh, screaming, or yelling at me. I'm just like, he's a Taurus, he's just very firm in his beliefs for a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
And it's just like, those loud, sudden noises are so triggering. Those messes are so triggering. Constantly trying to ground myself, and it's actually where sound healing came in and really saved the day for me this year. Once I started getting into the sound healing, it's annoying, but January 11th, 111, because I went back and looked in my journal. I wrote down, I'm like, I'm done with my bullshit. I'm done getting in my own way. Today is the day. I'm starting now.
Yep.
You know, Capricorn stellium says, bitch, let's go. So I started doing
Don't play
yoga
with a Capricorn
stellium. I started
stellium.
doing yoga that morning, meditating that morning. I want to say I've maybe missed 4 days this entire year.
Wow.
And
that's discipline right there.
Discipline.
In a spiritual practice. That's
Priorities.
what makes it a practice, is that personal discipline.
100%.
Bravo.
And having kids, I made sure I got up between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. to get my stuff done.
Yeah.
So by the time they woke up for school or anything, I was grounded. I was ready to go. I had all of my stuff done so I wouldn't be triggered that I couldn't do it while they were awake. No excuses. And having that practice, yoga, meditating, journaling every day, eventually got me into the sound healing because I started seeing how different frequencies and the binaural beats and everything were affecting me in a positive way. I started diving into the sound healing, and I was quickly able to get off antidepressants because of this that I had been on for a year. My body almost started rejecting them. Like, you don't need these anymore.
Yeah.
They were almost doing like the opposite of what they should do.
And also like the antidepressants, it changes your brain chemistry, which is super important for when you need it. It alters your brain and like the neurotransmitters and all that good stuff. And then it's kind of like if your brain hit that reset and was telling you, okay, this is like gonna hurt you more than help you right now, it's gotta like go. You hit that reset that you needed.
I did. And I say it a lot to people, like a broken record, but if I can do it, so can you. And that's coming from a single mom of 2 who runs multiple businesses on her own with ADHD,
killing it,
neurodivergent,
bad bitch,
PTSD from an abusive relationship. That's the reason why I was on antidepressants, because I had such bad trauma. Herbs weren't enough. Let's just say that. Herbs weren't enough. I had to get into therapy. I started doing EMDR, which is a whole nother thing. I did that every day for 1 hour for, I want to say 5 months. Because I used to not be able to even say Jaden's dad's name. I couldn't picture his face in my mind without getting triggered and upset. And it was very hard at first. I would just cry and tremble when we started this practice. But again, it's a practice. I'm doing it weekly for 5 months. I eventually got to the point where it doesn't bother me at all anymore. So talk therapy, EMDR.
What is EMDR?
So it's,
for the
I have to look
viewers.
it up. It's eye movement, desensitization, a word that I don't like to say, and reprocessing. So it's a form of psychotherapy.
Holy shit. So like kind of exposure therapy a little bit.
It's almost like hypnosis in a sense.
But like mini exposure therapy, not like talk to them. Like exposure therapy.
Yeah,
like...
the way this happens with this particular therapist, it was like, okay, let's think about this particular situation. Okay, we're thinking about it. How does it make you feel? Helpless. What's the opposite of helpless? Empowered. So let's plant empowered instead of helpless.
Perfect.
And we would do that through the binaural beats, which was another thing that got me into the binaural beats, because it was like, which makes your eyes go you know. And so then I saw like the power of how binaural beats work, which again, it all starts trickling into each other. And then getting my priorities straight got me to this place where I am right now today. Happier, healthier, more in tune than I have been ever in my life.
More routines and like grounding and stability, and like, I don't know, as a neurodivergent person, because it's like, I mean, we're basically 2 horns off the same goat. Like, I've got more of that panic disorder side, and I mean, there's been talk of like maybe I'm leaning a little bit OCD too, but I don't know, haven't been diagnosed with that. I can only confirm the panic disorder. And basically what that is it's not when there's thoughts that enter your brain that make you have a panic attack. It's like, boom, there's just a panic attack. It's hard to trace your steps or take control over something like that. And it is triggered through like stressful situations, traumatic situations. And this is actually going to lead me into talking about your medicine for a second, because it helped me kind of get through the breakdown year. I had a breakdown year. Okay. and I like famously call it that. And I went through a trauma and it was a near-death experience. And then after that, it triggered the panic disorder and it completely came back. And I would be driving and start to black out, so then I'm scared to drive my car. You know what it was? It was like baby proofing my life in case I just like faint. And living your life like that is so exhausting. It's so debilitating. It's just fucked up. It's almost like you're scared of your own tail. And there was a point in time where I was just like, it's like a joke, but it's serious. I was just like, somebody sedate me. And everybody in my life was like, you need to get medicated. And for me, I was staring at a bottle of Zoloft. I filled the prescription and everything, and I just like couldn't do it because there was this like voice in my head. I think you can do this if you push it. You could take the Zoloft, and it probably could have totally helped me. I could have gotten on it. It would have been fine. But there was a part of me that was like, just see if you can go a little bit further. And it's not that I'm saying, that a tincture isn't an alternative, right? Like entirely. But it was for me in that moment. And I reached out to Christy and I'm like, I need something. Like, this is what's going on. And she sent me her tincture called Center. And I will rave about it forever because it was just what the doctor ordered. Like, I had my water bottle and I would put a dropper full into it and then I would just kind of like sip my water through the day. And I wouldn't even notice how slowly but surely I would just start to like ground into my, I don't know, peace, I guess, like whatever peace I could have at that time. And so then after like a certain amount of months of being on that, I had another voice in my head that was like, slow down on it. And I did. And then when I kind of came out of it, I was like, holy shit, that was working so well. It kind of comes over you like a warm blanket and you're shocked at how well it works. But yeah, it was life-changing for me, really. It yanked me out of a time where I was just like lightning in a mason jar. Like, that's how I felt. Like, that's how my nervous system felt. And at that time, what I really needed was just a gut punch, to kind of chill the fuck out. And once I chilled out, I was able to think, because that's another thing is when you're spun up and when you're inflamed like that, you can't think. All you're doing is feeling.
Just like the hamster on the cycle, and it just makes the feelings get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it's just like, sedate me.
Oh my God, I was out of my mind. You watched that year.
Yeah.
I was out of it.
Somebody unplugged the router.
Like, it was so fucked up, which I'm sure that we all, or most of us, can relate to our own version of a breakdown year. I mean, it was a solid year that it was like broken. And then it took a whole separate year after that where I was secretly still worried about being broken, but like I wasn't fully there yet. But I was like, I mean, I'm out of the woods, but I'm still suspicious. I still don't feel like myself. It's hard. So, and you were just talking about how you just went through one of those years.
It's rough, but once you get out, the light is at the end of the tunnel.
And then you have this year.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about, that follows it.
It tried to knock me down again. It was almost like God was like, are you listening to me? Are you going to do it again?
Yeah.
Do we have to go through this again?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, I surrender. Here's the reins. You're driving. Spirit, take the wheel.
Totally.
Ever since I did that, I was able, it's not like I was like drinking like a lot or whatever, but if I would go out, I would have some beers or whatever. I've never been sober since I was like 15.
Yeah.
Through my pregnancies, yes, but like never willingly. I don't want to
by choice.
I don't want to partake anymore, but
yeah.
This year I decided I wanted to partake in sobriety. I got a clear download one day and it was, if you want to receive everything that you deserve and you desire, purify your life. So I did.
Preach
I did,
it.
And
Preach
when
it.
I tell you, it was like the floodgates just, and all of these blessings started rolling in. All of these people that came into my life, like mentors that I needed. But it was like I wasn't ready. I had to commit to that pure living because it's like I can't do the work that I'm doing and help people try to be better if I'm not doing that myself.
I love that we're talking about this because first of all, the proof is in the pudding. Like, you've been killing it. I've watched it. You've been killing it. We actually did a beach cleanup / full moon or new moon. It was new moon at that time. New moon ritual.
Ritual meditation, sound healing.
And Christy laid everybody out for a sound healing, and it was by the beach. And so we had what I think like 100, like a little
It
over
was
100 mermaids.
crazy.
Yeah, we had 100 mermaids laid out and just blasting off, and it was beautiful. Okay. And she started to take us into this trance state that I was like, wow, I feel so comfortable, because that's another thing too, is I don't feel comfortable like taking in the energy of just any healer off the street that I meet. And that's okay. Like, a lot of people feel that way. I understand them if they're skeptical of me first, you first, whomever, but I was just like, wow, I really, really, really trust her. And so it's cool because I've watched Christy find herbalism to
Mm-hmm.
then kill it in that and like gain so much awareness and so much skill. And then flipping into the sound healing and just kind of like having this well-rounded healer. But it's like you're talking about sobriety and kind of cutting out these last few vices. And again, you guys know how I am about this. Like, I'm completely sober, and it's not that we judge anybody that partakes in any vice, but like we can speak from the perspective of what works for us, right? And sobriety helps, especially for neurodivergent people, I think, as well,
Mm-hmm.
or neurodivergent healers, because it kind of helps you gain a little bit more control over your reality,
Mm-hmm.
in a big
And your
way.
thoughts and your
Yeah.
feelings and
Yep.
just everything. It got to a point sometimes when I would, because I've always been into music. I love music. I started playing the drums at 9.
Mm-hmm.
Started playing guitar when I was 12 or 13. But when I would drink alcohol
Yeah.
and I would try to pick up a guitar,
Mm-hmm.
I'd forget how to play it. Couldn't
No
remember how to
fucking
play
way.
it. Couldn't remember how to play it. Couldn't remember my poetry. Couldn't remember anything. When I would drink alcohol, it was like the beautiful parts of myself were tainted, and I couldn't remember how to express that unique side of myself. But, I got caught up in a rough scene in my teenage years, and then that escalated into getting into the local music scene and doing all these music festivals, being around a bunch of drugs, a lot of coke, a lot of uppers, and having ADHD.
Boom.
That was it for me. I started doing that, and it was like,
Woo!
oh, this
Yeehaw.
this works for my brain.
Totally.
Wow.
Those
There's that
stimulants.
dopamine that I lack. There's that serotonin that I lack. I'm also frying my brain,
Yeah.
frying my body. It was so hard to get away from it and get out. I just wish there were more sober events, and it's getting there. It's starting to get there. But shows are at breweries. Shows are at
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
always they're just like always right in the middle of something where it's hard to say no.
Shit, I've seen spiritual events that were at breweries.
I'm saying,
I want to do another beach cleanup with you because, I mean, you were just such a hot commodity.
In the beginning of that sound bath that I did on the beach, I remember telling you guys that a week prior to that, for the first time in my entire life, like I've been on a spiritual path for over 10 years, I had a guru come to me. And like I told you guys at the beach that day was Maharishi came to me in my dream. And I didn't know who Maharishi was. I thought I had heard the name before. And so like in my dream, I like get off this plane and I'm at the airport. And there's this guy playing this hand drum right when I get off the plane. And me and him just make eye contact. And I start walking away, and something in me, in my dream, was like, no, turn around and go ask him a question. So I'm like, Maharishi, like, what do I need to do? No specifics, just what do I need to do? And he just said, be edible. What the hell does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, gurus are known for giving their students like riddles, like
Totally.
to figure out. The next morning when I woke up, I'd written it all down, literally in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. so I wouldn't forget.
Mm-hmm.
Because you always tell yourself like I won't forget, and then you wake up and you have no idea. So I wrote it down, and the next day I'm like looking it up, like edible. What's the definition of edible? Easier to digest. Be easy to digest for people. Be pure.
Yeah.
Be something organic. Something that someone isn't going to choke on. Something that's not going to upset somebody's stomach.
Wow.
I'm
sure I've given tummy aches to people before, but I do not claim to be pure, okay, or organic. I'm working on it. But holy shit, that's so beautiful.
It was just so symbolic for what I was going through, and I really needed that message.
Yeah,
You know?
for sure.
And it was a beautiful moment in my life where it's just like, okay, like, I'm on the right path. Because you question it a lot, you know? Like,
of course.
Am I crazy? Like, what am I doing? But it's like, no, like, this is my purpose. This is my path.
I think you should do Reiki too. That's just a
I feel like it comes with
personal.
it naturally.
I almost stumbled on your intro earlier and I almost introduced you as a Reiki healer, which is funny. I just feel like you just got that shit.
You know, the first reading you ever did for me, and Lindsay always says, like, I don't really remember people's readings.
I'm not supposed to hold on to that personal information because it's for you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, continue.
So this was in like 2020, I think. But we had known each other for a while.
Quarantine year.
Yeah, quarantine. I'm like, well, I guess, we're home. We're doing nothing. So the first reading you ever did for me, you were like, you should write a book. And I'm like, that's funny because everyone has told me that since I was 15. And then you were like, I see another Instagram opening up, but it's not for silversmithing. It's for something else. And then like a few months later, I got into the herbal program.
Yeah.
And that's what the other Instagram was, is I opened up
Mystik Green.
Mystik Green. And then you were like, and then I see you doing some like tantric healing, weird, interesting stuff. And I'm like, me? Because I'm like, I'm kind
weird,
of like
but
reserved
cool
in a way. And I'm like, interesting. And then now I'm getting into this work and I'm just like, sound healing, frequency, vibrational medicine in a sense is
totally tantric.
Totally.
I want to build on like my healing practice. I think I've just always been so like firm in readings and like trying to perfect that. But I mean, most of my work, I feel like it just like has always started in the mind. It started in the mind for me. So it's like I spread that with however I can help humanity. But I also do feel a calling towards animals. Like my mom's friend up the street had a few horses and I'm like, can I just brush them out right now? And it just was immensely like helpful.
Mm-hmm.
They're just the best. I don't know. You should come to the Bali trip. I feel like it's more up your alley than it even is
Just remind
my
me to
alley.
get a passport.
Oh, you need a passport, girl.
I know.
Oh
Mine
my God.
expired in 2017. Yeah.
I know that like traveling is a privilege, so don't get it fucked up. Like I know that not everybody can just hop on a plane, and I feel like I have to say that disclaimer before I tell people to travel. But if you can travel and it aligns with you in your life and during your lifetime, to go do it, and everything is kind of teed up for you, like you have to do it. You have to do it.
What are some places that you're like, you have to go?
Bali is one of the ones. I was introduced to the Be Here Now book by Ram Dass from my mom's 1972 copy. She still has it. It's ripped up. It was $3.33. It says it on the side. It's weird because when I went to New Zealand, I didn't know that I like needed to go there until I went there. And we were actually just talking about astrocartography and Venus lines, and my Venus line goes right through Australia and New Zealand. And so I had never had a previous pull to like go to either one of these places. And then when I went, I was like, oh, here we go. Like, this is true. I mean, it's the one country that, if I'm not mistaken, this past year, they're handing back their government to the Maori people, like the indigenous people to the island. Like, you just never see some shit like that, in the world. And so it's like, I think rated #1 on the most peaceful, nonviolent place. I definitely want to go there again. What are your places? What do you dream about?
I mean, I've always wanted to go for some reason to London. I've always been pulled to go to London.
Totally.
London, like boiler room. Like
cool.
I know that's some random stuff, but like I love music and London boiler room. Some like underground, grimy, just.
I can see you doing that, and in Berlin. The rave scene in like London and Berlin, I'm like, you people are cool.
They're
like
the OGs.
Yeah.
Switzerland. Honestly, I've always wanted to go to Salem, Massachusetts. That's always been a calling, which leads me into our next subject, which is the Akashic Records.
Okay.
And, Which you got me to
I did get you
a
into it.
reading with your friend. And years ago, I smoked some DMT and I blasted off to the Akashic Records.
Woo!
And not everybody gets to have these experiences when they do DMT, but I guess I was special. And I went to the Akashic Records. I had no idea what the Akashic Records were. And this man who looks like Dumbledore, like, met me up there in the middle, like, of the grid, right? And it's just like all of these huge, beautiful white pillars, like, just spinning, rotating. And then in the center of it was just like this big giant ball. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, where am I? And he's like, oh, this is the language of the universe. He's like, everything that's ever happened is recorded here. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And he like gives me a tour or whatever. And I like, come back down to earth. And my son, my oldest son, his dad is with me. And I was like, you'll never believe where I just went. And I started explaining it to him. And he's like, oh, you went to the Akashic Records, like nonchalant. I'm like, you know this place?
Yeah.
You've been there? And he's like, no, I've never been there. He's like, but look it up. Looked it up. And I'm like, sure as shit. That was the Akashic Records. And that's where I went. So when you linked me up with your friend, I was like, yeah, I think I've gone there before. And she's like, oh, I guess with every person, the keepers show it differently to everybody. She's like, so what did it look like to you? And I explained it to her, and she's like, oh yeah, that's interesting, whatever. And I digress. So she does a reading for me, and it was almost like a past life type of reading. And she said my most recent past life was Salem, Massachusetts. And she said, I like get goosebumps talking about it. She's like, because you're in this little white bonnet and you're staring at a church. And everyone in the church wants you to come into the church. But you said, that's not where my church is. My church is out here in nature. And I was like, oh my God.
That's who KG is today. Like, that is so who you were like born into in this incarnation.
She said I got in a lot of trouble in that life because of my beliefs and my rebellious nature to not conform. And I was just like, still to this day, I'm like that. Like, don't tell me what to do. No.
I would never tell you what to do because you scare me like that because, okay, we were talking about this prior. Okay, so we're both Aquarius and she has this Capricorn stellium. I have a Sagittarius stellium, but even more so, like I've got the moon in Libra and like the rising Libra, and I'm like so much more like non-confrontational like that. I'm like, you could twist my arm a little bit. Oh my God, I'll like apologize immediately. And she is not that way. She's just like my mentor, Sarah. She's got the Aquarius in the sun, but also the Capricorn in her chart. It's just that those two together, that double Saturn is so like, I can tell myself what to do, and I have a great understanding of like my own self-discipline being ruled by Saturn, but like you don't need to do that for me. And it's very, I don't know, double Saturn like that, no fucking way. I wouldn't even try.
The worst thing that you could ever do to me is confine me and take away my freedom. That is my hell on earth.
Yeah.
Is me not being able to say yes or no.
Yeah.
Or somebody trying to tell me what to do, how to do it. Like, that's why I am my own boss, because I can't. Everywhere in my chart says, I work better alone. And I do, and it's not personal. It's not like I hate people.
It's like you're a contractor.
Yeah.
It's
like to work alone.
Exactly. It's like, okay, if I want to like collab with you on something, I do. I see you as a contractor. It's like,
I love that.
If I book you for a beach cleanup, don't expect that she's going to say yes to all of them. That's definitely the energy that you project, which is okay. It's good. I'm inspired by that because for some reason, again, it could be the Libra in me, but what I project is like, oh, I'm all in for all of it all the time. Like that's what people hear with me. And I'm like, just because I did it once doesn't mean I want to do it like a million fucking times, you know, because it's okay to be an independent contractor. You should treat everyone that way.
Yeah.
It's important.
Respect their boundaries and their privacy and their life, because everybody has a life beyond doing something that you want them to do.
Oh, yeah. Beyond you.
please.
Totally.
Please. And I've had to set those boundaries. Probably the last couple of years I really had to set those boundaries, that it's not personal. It's not that I don't like you. It's not that I don't want to hang out with you. I don't want to work with you, XYZ. Yeah. It's yes, I can be extroverted, but I'm an introvert and I need to recharge. I'm an empath, and being in the world that we're in, I have to have time to recharge. I have to have time to make a conscious yes or no decision.
You have to know it and feel it and have that conviction. You can't just do it. You're like, no, I have to feel it in my heart.
Before I forget, I made this last night because I'm like, I should make a list of all the things we should talk about. Then I was like, you know what? I should make a 90s fortune teller thing.
That is so cool. You're so cool. Oh my God.
I haven't made one of these literally since probably the 90s in church.
Okay, so we're going to choose the next topic.
Pick a color.
I'm going to go pink.
Okay, so P-I-N-K. Pick a number.
Ooh, 7.
7. The topic is Akashic Records. So funny.
Fuck. I had a similar situation with the Akashic Records, but I don't even know if I actually went there. And this is what I'll say about it. One time I was giving blood. And
willingly?
Yeah, okay. I think so. And I passed out. Okay, obviously giving blood. And I mean, that's typical. That's normal for me. But I passed out for 10 minutes. Okay, didn't wake up.
I remember that.
Passed out. Yeah, I was like, guys, this major thing happened. I passed out, and it was like I was in a dream, and it was this long row of what it looked like to be a library, but everything was in chrome. Like everything was chrome. There was no person there. It wasn't super witchy and cool. I guess it was very like alien-esque, but everything was chrome. Books were chrome, lockers chrome, looked like a school or something, and it had like blue light accents, and them nurses just were like breathing whistles in my ears and waking me up, and I literally grabbed this nurse's arm and I'm like, where the fuck am I? I was like, where the fuck am I? And she's like, you are in the gynecologist, you passed out. And I'm like, shit. Oh my God, but it was so vivid. And I remember driving home and being just very unsure if it was the records, but I knew it was somewhere else that was kind of similar, that was like important. It felt like a place of information, but I don't think I've ever like went there in meditation, although I'm fascinated by the stories. I don't think I've gotten like an invite for the records. And that's cool. But Alma, our Akashic Records reader, she's fantastic.
Beautiful woman.
She's a beautiful woman. Just so, what's a way to describe her? I mean, she ancient. I don't think I've met anyone older ever. She is just old to me and super grounded.
She told me, she's like, right when I committed to you, she goes, I had to ground myself for a few days because there was so much energy coming out.
Yeah.
Because when she did mine, besides the Salem thing, she said, I had like a warrior past life and I was like a general in the war or whatever. That was my only male life. She goes, beyond that, there's just galactic beings in front of me. You are not human.
Yeah.
She goes, and they're fighting over you.
Yeah.
I'm like, are there any green ones? Like light green ones? Because I had another trip one time where I went to this world with these beautiful green beings. And they were just like, we miss you. Please come home. They're crying. I'm crying. And then when I like snap out of it, homesick for a week, depressed, missed them. I felt like I had just been ripped away from my family.
Ooh, I've had those alien dreams before.
I'm just like, oh my gosh.
She saw my alien life, which was interesting because she just described it as like a really big alien, which is so funny to me. It was like a giant alien, and she said that it was like a big, gentle giant situation of a being that just wanted to like play and that visualized the universe as their playground. And that made me very emotional and cry, because when I don't feel broken, that's exactly how I feel. Way bigger than my body and super just, if I'm not having fun, I'm fucking leaving. And like, what other point is there? I know that there's like hard stuff. We talk about that all the time. But my aim and my goal is very girls just want to have fun. Like always. Okay, do that again. Yellow.
YELLOW. 1. Ghost. Have you seen one?
I don't even know where to start. It's funny because
Scariest one.
Okay, then Salem, Massachusetts. Let's talk about it. Totally. Because I wanted to when you brought it up, and I'm like, let's not ruin this moment with how you feel about Salem, Massachusetts.
No, the scarier the better. I love it.
Dude, Salem, Massachusetts, totally. I went there during like Halloween week with Sarah and Sid. And what's hilarious is that Sid mentioned this situation that happened in our last episode, and I totally glazed over it. And I'm like, I can't believe I didn't tell that story. That's funny. So basically, we go there, we touch down, and we're walking around Salem. And I'm like, okay, I feel this anxiety tick this entire time. Like something's trying to kill me, like basically. And we go to like the Salem like reenactment stuff. I'm sitting there. It's like a great play that we're watching, and uncontrollably my hands are shaking. We just ate food. I don't get it. Something's happening. She's like, I'm not going to say, past life. I'm going to say like maybe you're reliving some persecution type of trauma, which is, I live it every day, bitch, too. So anyways, we go to these like Salem museums, right? And we are like booking this ghost tour for this graveyard during nighttime. And we go and they're describing these graves and these people and all of this stuff. And I'm like, okay, I don't feel good. We need to leave. And so we just left and we go to sleep. And that night I wake up and I have a horrific nightmare of these creatures. And they're very specific. It was like monkeys with like wings and shit. It was like on some
like the ones from Wizard of
Yeah,
Oz?
exactly. It was like shit like that. And also monkeys that were kind of like cats, but also like they had distinct yellow eyes. And so I'm like, that's very otherworldly. Like I know my dreamscape. That's something definitely off and super weird. And how I feel about stuff like that, I'm really good about brushing it off. I wake up in the morning, I'm like, whatever, bad dream, maybe, bad entity shit, keep it moving. I don't like to feed into stuff too much. So we go on this tour and they are describing the witch's familiar that they were supposedly like saying. I'm not saying that it was, real or anything, but they were talking about how the witch's familiar were these like crossbred monkey things with wings or cat monkeys with yellow eyes and all this stuff. And Sid and Sarah look at me and they're like, we need to fucking leave this town. Like, because this whole time I'm kind of telling them about my like back and forth, like I'm arm wrestling myself with feeling so many entities. I couldn't even walk into the witch house. I'm like, this is like a little bit too much. It's overwhelming. I feel like you got a lot of pissed off colonial energy here. Like it's just fucked up. Like I don't like colonial spirits. I just hate it. Early settler shit. It's just terrible. I don't know. And so we get in the car and we're on our way to the airport to leave. And I'm sitting in the front seat with the Uber driver. And the Uber driver is just this cool Bostonian guy. He's talking to the girls. And this car swerves right in front of us, cuts us off. And the tag says repent. Straight across the tag. And I'm just sitting there. I'm sitting there and I'm just like, this motherfucking shit. And I kept feeling like the city tried to just keep me there type of energy. And it was this whole thing. Our airline was like, you probably aren't going to make your connecting, so you should rebook. The girls are like, let's go rebook. I'm like, no, we need to get on that plane and just get the fuck out of here. We just need to get out of here. And we get on the plane and the stewardess is just like, that is so weird. Why would they tell you that? You're going to make it in time. We're like, what the fuck? Like it was so
hell no.
chaotic and weird. It really like had to do with relying on, my intuition at the time. And then I had a few practitioners that actually work out of shops who we still to this day mutually follow each other. And I was talking about my experience in Salem and they totally confirmed it. They're like, Salem was trying to pull you in and claim you. Okay. Which it's not actually, it didn't feel like my spot. And during this time of year, the witches that are in competing shops are throwing around so many hexes and so much shit back and forth. He's like, for you as like a psychic walking around the streets was probably just feeling like you're walking on landmines. And so it kind of relates to the ghost stuff because all I I was feeling was just that medium shit. I was like, this is too much. Like, I don't want to live my life as like a medium. I mean, Salem is cool. I'm not talking shit. I think it's cool that the place kind of reclaimed magic for themselves. But I mean, when you go to those museums and you see the horrific shit that, I mean, they had a war on women, like full on war on women.
Yeah.
And when you see how kids and women were being treated, you're like, oh my God, this is horrific.
I can only imagine, like, if I went there, you know, what if I have like a experience like that where, you know, like flashbacks or like
oh yeah,
anxious energy, almost just like
I'll go with
like
you.
I've been here before and this is like a lot for me, you know.
Yeah. I would literally go with you.
Yeah.
I wouldn't care. I would just be like, you know, I know the beast.
We're coming for our Halloween Town.
Yeah, we're coming for the Halloween Town experience.
I'll be the grandma.
Yeah, period. All right.
Next color.
Let's do blue.
BLUE.
Now we're just gonna flip through them.
How about 8? Witchcraft taboos.
Ooh, good one. What do you think? You start it.
What comes to me first is like the church and how the church portrays, demonizes almost witchcraft. A lot of Christians in general, how they portray witchcraft is just very off. It's just like, that's not what's going on.
Well, they're just fearing what they don't know. That's always been the fear surrounding witchcraft and making it taboo and weird.
Yeah, it's a craft, you know.
It is. It's an art. Craft. It's also religious, you know. But I think a lot of people invalidate it because it's just not this like, it's actually not a like religion or like a practice that instills like major fear or like hatred for another person. So that's why they invalidate it.
Yeah. What comes to mind for you? Like, what's a taboo?
I definitely stand up for like my brothers and sisters that practice voodoo and hoodoo. It's not my practice. It's not my cultural background, but I work alongside like plenty of practitioners, or that, you know, practice Santeria, like, and those practices are closed, and it's almost sad that a lot of their practice has been talked about and the masses can draw their own conclusions with animal sacrifices or whatever opinions that they have that they're so culturally removed from because it's not theirs. So how could they understand? Basically, mind your business.
While you eat your cheeseburger.
Yeah, mind your business.
With a cow that was pretty much sacrificed in a very inhumane way. It's just very like
100%. 100%. Mind your business, you know? And so I'm very like, just not, I don't know. When it comes to the craft itself, I'm very like, you know, just mind the business that pays you. You know, when there's like practices that may seem weird or taboo to you, just like back off, you know, because 9 times out of 10, like it's so, those practices are so deep in somebody's like ancestral heritage that they don't see anything weird or wrong about it at all. I also don't like the taboo against defensive magic. This is a big conversation too, actually. Everybody talks about how whatever you do comes back to you times 3. That is a law that applies to certain practices. Like that law does not apply to me because that's not a part of my practice. Defensive magic, which is something that everybody is entitled to, such as like reversal spells or, you know, protection or cleansing, but also hexing, because sometimes a hex is defensive. And I'm big on that, you know, where I get that some people don't agree with it or they don't feel comfortable practicing it themselves because they're not versed in it, which I completely understand. But I guess like that gray area magic, which a lot of people find to be taboo, like in me, I don't think that that's fair because I think that it all comes from like a defensive place. Because sometimes a hex is truly about justice, and you know, like it's for the same reason that I will unapologetically hex a rapist, because if you can kind of shift the energy so that this person either meets their reckoning or like goes to jail or something.
Anybody again?
Yeah, exactly. It's like that, you know. And so sometimes you got to take justice into your own hands. So taboo, like witchcraft taboos, I'm like, those are my top ones for me. Yeah. What time is it?
2:48.
You're lying right now. Okay, we gotta go.
Gotta go.
2:48. Thank you so much for tuning in with us. This has been Word to the Witch with KG, Mystik Green.
Oh, that's another name, KG. We didn't get that one. So there's like 5. But anyways, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was fun.
So much fun. All right. Till next time.
Love you.
Mwah.
Bye.